Kris, why are you special?
Probably the expected response is I'm not. I can do all da-da-da. But I think, not to circle around the everybody's special. I have been afforded the opportunity, and I can't say it was a me thing. I've been afforded the opportunity to serve in the Army personnel space for 10 years. And they have given me a breadth and depth of knowledge on how all the processes work and how they're supposed to work and how they're actually put together with bubblegum and piano wire to work. That really kind of is a special knowledge repository, for lack of a better term. The worst thing they did, though, was before that, I was working out in Indo-PACOM with Special Operations Command Pacific, doing building partner capacity efforts, and I learned how to take small teams, insert them into host nations, and create capacity. So I've essentially been doing that. Now you're speaking my language. Well, I've essentially been doing that for data teams in the HR space for the last 10 years because they taught me how to run little micro-insurgencies. So we've been running these little tech insurgencies in that space. I think that combination, I think it's special.
I'm Herb Thompson, a Green Beret and resolutionist.
And I'm Corrie Thompson, Herb's less hairy half and branding expert.
Our guests come from various backgrounds, but one thing is true. They are special. I think it's special. I think our audience will too. You're leading the U.S. Army's talent innovation management and so much more that we're going to get into. Also approaching retirement. You can see the horizon, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Down in the single digits on months.
Single digits of months. Did you always want to serve in the Army?
It really didn't occur to me until the 11th hour when I was applying for college. So I was interested in the time going into pre-med. Long story for that. I'll try to keep short. But I had been in an accident when I was a kid. I got smacked off my bike by a drunk driver, got my knee put back together by a wonderful set of surgeons. I volunteered in the emergency room. I candy striped. I was fascinated by medicine, so I wanted to go into medicine. Applied to a bunch of programs and realized that these programs were insanely expensive, that this was not going to happen. So I'm sitting there, gloom and doom, all the things I wanted to do, I'm never going to be able to afford. A guidance counselor at my high school hands me a brochure for West Point. And this is me, kid growing up in Central California. There's no Army in my family. Didn't realize this was a thing. Read about it in Civil War history, read about Grant and Lee graduating from West Point. Didn't realize it was still a thing. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with this? Well, they talk about the different programs and find out that, there's all these things I can major in. There's collaborative degree programs. I can go to UShoes. I can learn medicine there. Okay, I'm sold. This sounds great. What does it cost? And like, oh, well, you actually get paid a stipend and then you get commissioned as an officer. Oh, wait, I get paid and I get a job. I Elwoods my way into this. Like, okay, I'm going to West Point. Like, oh, sure you are. People prepare their whole lives for this. You're going to West Point. I applied. I went and did all my things. I got my Congresswoman's office to recommend me, and I go to West Point.
That's incredible.
It was a little bit, again, kind of the legally blonde side of things.
That's amazing, though.
Made it in and ended up absolutely falling in love with service.
Graduated from West Point, and now 20 plus years later,
24.
Still in.
Was not in the life plan, was not in the bingo card, but I really did. I fell in love with service.
And at one point, you even went back to teach at West Point, right?
I did. Yeah, it was one of the things I wanted to do. When I found out that was an opportunity I could have, even before I graduated, I put a letter of interest in with my department.
Wow.
And I said, I really want to come back here someday. Will you guys consider me? Coming around the time, they start looking at us to come back and teach after we've had company command. Getting interviewed, and like, we'd really like you to come back and teach.
So you've had about 5-6 years in the Army at this point?
Yeah. I extended out a little bit. I volunteered for another deployment. Following that, I went right to grad school and showed up at West Point to teach cadets how to do deterministic and stochastic modeling of all the things.
That's pretty incredible.
You don't often talk to people who teach at West Point, which is a premier, educational institution. Now, obviously, you said that this 20 plus year career, but you end up in this pretty unique role. We feel is very unique as far as talent innovation management at the Army, which I'm an old graybeard guy. A lot of times the Army doesn't necessarily embrace innovation. Mm-hmm. How did you kind of land in this, a unique spot?
By accident, the way you land in anything in the Army. So I was at Indo-PACOM. I was doing a lot of different things. I was working on at the time, I was working on counterterrorism, counter-threat finance, network analysis, using a little bit of my grad degree after teaching. And I wanted to keep doing it because I thought it was fascinating. I could use numbers and data analysis and nodal analysis to catch bad guys. So I applied for a job at Joint Staff J8 and wanted to keep doing the same thing. And my branch, in their infinite knowledge, said, no, you can't do back-to-back joint jobs. You need to go do an Army staff job if you're going to go to DC. So we're going to assign you to the Army G1. This is 2016. I know absolutely nothing about personnel. I was an engineer turned into an operations research and systems analyst. Nothing. I knew I got my orders from HRC. That was about it. And so I show up in the G1. Why do I have this history of legally blonding my way in the case? Yeah, I know nothing about this. So I show up, I'm asking how do they do business. And so I'm coming from a organization that's using, at the time, premier data analysis software to be able to do sentiment analysis, to be able to do all these different types of great things. And we're forecasting the strength of the Army on this batch of interconnected Excel spreadsheets. I'm like, guys, we got to fix this. Started building out new programs, started building these little teams. Again, I really think of it as I built my own little data ODA team, inserted myself into the host organization, and started building capacity. And I'm still there now.
It's incredible. And I am just so amazed as I see all the things that you've done in that space, how much knowledge you had outside of the military and how much you understood that world and how to bring that into the military. How did you gain all of that insight and knowledge?
I blame my soft cohorts. Again, I blame them for many things out of PACOM. They looked everywhere for solutions. They interfaced with academia and industry. They figured out who was best in breed in terms of technology. So that's what I started doing. I started looking around going, we're not the only people who do HR. Everybody does HR. Somebody's dealing with this problem. And I particularly engaged, this is actually when I met Brent Parmiter, who became our Chief Talent Management Officer for DoD for a while, when he was still at Walmart. Because Walmart, about the same size as us. At the time, we were 1.3 million people. Add our civilians in, closer to 1.5. And so we're a little bit smaller than Walmart, about the size of Amazon. Went out and talked to a lot of different people. If they had solutions for 10,000 employees, it really wasn't going to help us. But there were lots of people out there with large companies who had tech solutions, who had dealt with the same type of things that we did and had solutions. So I started what I now call kind of reverse business development for the Army. I went out and made a point of interfacing with all of our different tech partners, people who weren't tech partners yet, and trying to figure out how they solve these problems so I could bring those solutions back into the Army and test and prototype them.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Don't reinvent the wheel. I think I heard that when I was young, but the Army isolated itself and think it's only our problem. Like you said, HR, every company out there does HR. Why not learn from it?
Or it comes back to your point of why are you special? We think all of our problems are special.
Right.
Just because, we do have the sliver of things that only we can do. I mean, we have to admit that the Army is in different parts of the Army is very tightly geared to do some very special missions. HR is not one of them. It's like we are not magic special unicorns when it comes to HR. As much as we would like to think we are. We have a lot of the same problems other people have.
I was going to say, and some of those core problems, I think you know from the conversations that we've had, large part of my career has been in human capital management. And it's been fun and interesting. Every contract that I've taken, the same commonalities exist. So what in your experience has been those commonalities that you've seen that the Army also shares as like their biggest challenges?
Talent acquisition. We're all looking at retention of key talent. We're all looking at turnover rates or attrition rates in our case. The thing that we have that's easy for modeling but bad for us is that up until fairly recently, we've been a single entry point system. So it's easy to model what we're going to have at what grade at each time. That's bad because it's like we need to fill those middle grades. And, out in industry, you can say, I'm going to recruit somebody from this, steal them from this other company. We started doing that now through lateral accessions and direct commission. But up until then, we really didn't do that. But we're all kind of tracking the same metrics, the same performance, the same things that we need to, take talented people, put them in teams to do, in our case, a mission, everywhere else to do a job.
Yeah.
Since you hit on it, there's Detachment 201. I would like to know more about, because I feel like people feel a certain way about this once they hear about it. And I'm sure you've heard. So what is Detachment 201 as you're talking about these lateral accessions and growing the force?
Attachment 201 is kind of a special case of us exercising authorities that we got in the 2019 NDAA for direct commission. In this particular case, we were looking at all of the talent we have in the Army. I mean, we've got a huge amount of tech talent in the Army. We've got a lot of people who can, you find somebody either probably in the reserve because we have a huge amount of capability there, but even active side, somebody's going to build an app, somebody's going to build an algorithm. They can build and cobble together pretty much anything you want. The hard part is, and the part that we struggle with as an Army, is scaling solutions at the enterprise. And we're talking that 1.1, 1.2 million people. And that solution has to reach there. So when we started talking about Detachment 201, it's like we want an executive core that can help us figure out how to take these innovative ideas. And I mean, a lot of innovation handbooks you guys see. It's like, okay, we can do this. We tested it. We got it. It's viable. A miracle occurs. Now it scales. It's like, we know that's not the case. But we needed people who could tell us how to take that little pinpoint solution and federate it across the enterprise. So that was kind of the starting purpose of Detachment 201. And it's still our kind of discriminating factor as we look at future cohorts. It's that executive enterprise viewpoint. Not that they're hands-on keyboard developing things, because we have that talent throughout the Army, but because they know how to take it and put it everywhere.
But you're talking about like tech executives who are like right now an executive at this tech company, and now boom, you're in the Army. Mm-hmm. The Army can't grow that talent. I mean, you can over how many ever years, I guess, maybe, but like.
The funny part is we have some equivalent talent in the DoD. I mean, Mike McGinley is my favorite case. He's a general officer in the Air Force. He's a Google executive, and he's also standing up a number of different innovation projects. Runs the Gig Eagle program, which I'm really excited about. It's a big talent marketplace, AI powered. But it's like we do have, another one is the Deputy OCAR, Diane Del Rosso. She is a senior vice president at IBM in her day job, and she's a reserve officer. So we do have executives walking around in uniform. In this particular case, I think the sticky point is they came right in as lieutenant colonels. There's a lot of, well, look at everything I went through to get here. Why they didn't earn their stripes.
It took me 20 years. Mm-hmm. Back in the day when I walked uphill both ways in a snowstorm to school.
Well, we did, and it sucked.
And so how do you combat that pushback?
One of the things I think we haven't done is be as transparent about the communication as we could have. We're working on that right now, but a lot of it was because we were trying to get this program off the ground without it being totally derailed by some of those conversations.
And quite frankly, sometimes the Army makes decisions without having to let the world know.
We do that. That's fair. But I think in this case, one of the things we didn't emphasize is they're commissioned into cyber branch. That makes a difference because our cyber lieutenant colonels and colonels are fielding tech solutions and managing technology teams at enterprise. These guys are fielding tech solutions and managing technology teams at enterprise. They're not coming into command of battalion. These guys will never see command. So they're not taken away from the person who has, dragged himself through the mud, has bled for the country, and has fought to earn that ability to command our soldiers in combat. They're not doing that.
Don't we do it with other, I say we, I'm not in the Army anymore, geez. Does it for some other specialties, right? You come in at higher ranks than just a lowly E1 or an O1.
Oh, no, it's not a new idea. We've done it all the time for our judge advocate generals, our lawyers, for our docs. Since we have the authorities, we do it quite a bit for cyber, as we do bring in that talent laterally. We do it a lot for civil affairs because we have kind of a grab bag of different specialties there that are best grown outside the Army. We do a lot for Corps of Engineers, as we have a lot of really amazing construction supervisors and civil engineers, multi-degreed, who we can just take and put right into Corps of Engineers. So then the question kind of becomes military essentiality. Why do they need to wear a uniform? One, skin in the game. Two, UCMJ. They do something and they're under all of the UCMJ authorities. And then it's really from a military essentiality point, having the trust of somebody who is wearing the uniform that we have dragged through the experience of being a soldier. And, for our Detachment 201 guys, we sent them to Benning in July for their direct commission course.
Not fun, I can tell you. No offense to the folks down there at Fort Benning. Benning in July, not fun.
No, it's a little bit special. But they have a few stories. We have made them go sit in the motor pool. We gave them the biggest, thickest bricks of computers to deal with. Oh, it's wonderful. Every time they go through an HR process, I get reams of feedback. So it's like I get free consulting every time they have to go through something.
Yeah, which is the beauty really of that, is that sometimes the best thing that you can ever do for your company is get a fresh set of eyes, and eyes that aren't looking at it the way that they've been trained to look at it. So in my opinion, I think it's brilliant because you've got people that have brand new observations, brand new experiences to call out and to think of in different ways that might just never occur to people that have, gone through it for so many years.
And Corrie, I want to unfold that a little bit too, because it's a great observation, because we're bringing them into our culture, but guess what we're sending them back to their company with?
A little bit of yours.
Culture.
Yeah.
So as we do that, think about the number of senior executives who don't understand what it means to serve, who don't understand what it means to be a veteran, who don't understand what it means to hire and support a reservist, who don't understand the requirements of a military spouse. We have these folks in there, and even though they're in reserve duty, they're getting a taste of what that means. And they're going to go back out to their company and talk about their service and understand what people are talking about when they say they need to go do drill. They need to do their paperwork. They need to do their training.
Or even when talent is looking at who they're hiring and how that experience is comparative to other people that are applying for similar positions.
Mm-hmm.
Like it or not, the Army and the military at large have been the most successful organization in the United States. And if you're comparing, opportunities to mirror, I would think that you would be probably unwise not to look at some of those things that you could take back to your own company.
I think they're realizing too the real ingenuity and innovation of the American soldier, because they're coming in, tech executives from these big companies, and they're working side by side with our soldiers. Yeah. Solving problems. Our soldiers are building those algorithms we were talking about, and they're really seeing like, oh, wow, we have this. This is in the service. Our veterans are coming with this.
Widens your talent pool immensely.
Exactly.
For two reasons, I think this is a good transition. Mm-hmm. We kind of got you in the hot seat talking about 201 and also talking to the American people. The Army has undergone this influencer program.
Yes.
Which some people have certain feelings about.
And there's a lot of programs that people have feelings about.
I have to back you up and say, when I first met Herb, I told him that he had something special and that he had the capability of being an influencer. I can
see how much he loves
the
that.
podcast. We're done.
I didn't mean it in this traditional capacity.
I cussed at her and hung up the phone.
He did actually. I called back and said, I didn't mean like a TikTok influencer or like an Instagram influencer. I just meant you have the capability to influence.
We've all been in the military
people.
too long. We can't do the dances. We'd slip a dance.
Right? Yeah. Dance and bear syndrome.
Get out of bed for a week or so.
But with that said, as this, past 4 or 5 years have grown, he actually has become somewhat of an influencer. And like it or not, I think you've learned to appreciate the ability to
sit here and not get up and end the podcast.
But I think there's so many benefits. So I'd love to
let's reframe that a little bit. Because remember the people who schooled me on how to do a lot of the things I do. Information operations is an extremely powerful tool for shaping your environment.
Right.
I got involved in LinkedIn as much as I did and have grown my following because a lot of my following is senior government officials, Army leaders, and senior defense contractors. So that's an audience that I can reach without having to send an email, make an appointment with their EA, and all the other things we have to do to be able to reach people. A lot of it is, I won't say it's information warfare, it's information operations, but we're shaping our environment. And I like to think we're doing it in a positive way. So that was what, when we started talking about the influencer program, our Army Creative Reserve, that's what we were thinking about. We're like, how do we shape conversation about the Army in a more positive, more authentic way than we're doing with just commercials? Because nobody buys into paid commercials anymore. They look at our stuff. It doesn't matter how expensively produced it is, how great the special effects. They know it's an actor coming in and telling you about an experience that actor might never have had.
And I can't tell you the last time I actually saw a commercial.
No, I have to go find the Army channel on YouTube to watch the commercials.
Or that I paid attention to the commercial. Maybe that's better. I'm sure there was
skip.
I have a 7-year-old. I mean, he'll sit there, skip ad.
Skip ad as soon as you can hit it. Exactly. Actually, I'm really glad that you brought up that, shifting conversations. That's something that Herb and I have been extremely intentional about when it comes to the Army. And when it comes to the information that's often put out there, you hear a lot of negative, you hear a lot of the bad side, but we have a lot of the things that we have today based off of this amazing career that Herb had. I was married to someone previously who was in the service and was a part of that, experience as a military spouse. And I can say that, there were some really great moments in that as well. So we've been extremely intentional about trying to do our part to reshape the messaging and to encourage others to spend time doing the same and reaching audiences that could potentially be interested in joining the military.
That could influence others.
Others.
Yes.
Look at you came around.
That's different than being an influencer.
And that's what I meant.
I'll
That's what I
accept
meant.
influence others.
So I'd love to talk, if you will, about kind of what your intentions have been in that capacity of like recruiting. Was this a piece of what you all were thinking could be impacted positively?
I moved over to USAREC to stand up their innovation directorate.
U.S. Army Recruiting Command?
Mm-hmm. U.S. Army Recruiting Command. And we were looking at a lot of things that we could potentially get off the ground with not a huge amount of budget to experiment and improve things in the space. So we were looking at how we were doing marketing, where it was reaching. And I had a few influencers approach me. I had a couple of them reach out and they're like, hey, we see we have a recruiting crisis. I have this great following. I have people who've kind of reached out and said they enlisted because they saw my stuff. How can I help? And I thought about that and like, well, let's find out. Let's figure out how you can help. Let's see if there's something that we can do or we can partner with you and see how you can help. And as part of that, they offered up all their information. They offered up their accounts. So we did a lot of data mining there. And I realized that they were reaching markets we couldn't pay to reach. And not just that. I mean, I showed it to a friend of mine, John Densher. He's the chief strategist for Maximum Effort, Ryan Reynolds' company. And we were looking at different ways that we could potentially partner. He watched a lot of their videos and he goes, you guys have your own culture. I mean, this is going to be no surprise to anybody in this room, but he's like, you guys have your own culture, your own language, your own mannerisms. Just like, we can't replicate this. We cannot make this authentic. And at that moment, I was just like, I got to figure out how to harness this. I have to figure out how to get these guys in the position, guys and gals, in the position where they can tell their story. And we need to support them sharing messages in a way that stays authentic to their brand, but also helps carry more information out there. We brought in a bunch of different marketing strategists. We brought in a bunch of script writers. We talked about storytelling. I mean, we did a bunch of different workshops. And we realized that all we really needed to provide them with was access. I pay them TDY. They go and cover an event. They go create some content with soldiers. They have fun. They interview senior leaders. The Army Birthday Ball was the biggest, the Army Birthday Week was the biggest event that we did with them.
And a cheap investment? Sorry to interrupt, a cheap investment, right? Just pay for their TDY.
Yeah, for 8 influencers, we paid probably about $70,000 worth of TDY. And we had AMO, the Army Enterprise Marketing Office, calculate what we got in terms of reach and value. And it was over $5 million worth of marketing.
Amazing.
I'm not a mathematician, but that's good.
It's good.
And this is one of the number one things that I've tried to speak with clients about is really maximizing your organic reach with the tools and assets that you have. And the number one asset you have is your people.
Yes.
And your people will always be the best recruiting tool you can have, the best retention tool you can have. So I am just so impressed that not only that you recognize that, but then that you convinced people to make that happen. So is that easy?
No. There are a lot of people who looked at this and had the same response that Herb had. Like, I'm going to let a TikTok influencer be the voice of the Army. Because you know how we are when we're the voice of the Army. We're at the podium and we're rigid. We're going to use knife hands and da-da-da.
And more faces.
Yes. We army up. Even my influencers do that because they show their shtick on their videos.
Yeah.
But you put them in front of a camera and they're representing the Army. They army up. They are sitting at attention. There's different voice. I mean, I can see that uniform speaking.
I've heard one of them in particular, his dialect even changes.
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. But they know when they're representing.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, how do we bridge between that?
Yeah. What is the balance
persona
there? How do you allow them?
Experimenting.
What are the parameters of that?
We're experimenting. What we did is we said, you guys go create content.
Yeah.
You submit to us the stuff you think is Army content, and we'll share the stuff we like. The rest is yours to do what you want to do with.
And is there any rules on their personal, like the posts that they might make that aren't Army content? Do they still have, free reign to kind of do what they want? Or are they still
Free
a little
reign-ish.
technically, free reign?
Well, so if we take them onto this program,
sure,
they're representing the Army. They can be funny, but not inappropriate. And it's one of those where we've had to do a lot of coaching because sometimes we don't know the line until we see it. And it's one of those things that I remind my commanders. It's like, this is the reason you're a commander. You make a judgment call. Are you willing to accept risk on the things they're doing because they're returning value? Or have they crossed the line where it's too much risk and you need to reel them back in? Because as a commander, they're in the service. You can say, I do not approve you to have this extra job because you are disrespecting the Army or you're not representing the Army appropriately. I mean, having an extra job in the Army is a privilege. It's something that we approve. And it's something I think in the case of a lot of these very talented individuals that, partnering with them can be very beneficial, but it's still one of those things that we can draw that line.
I see the ROI like you just laid out, and I see it happening in real life on social media, but I still go back to like 7-8 years ago, I was back in uniform, the old guy with gray hair. And one of my guys or gals was like, oh, I'm going to be an influencer for the Army. I would probably have an ulcer. Like I'd be like, or, an aneurysm. Because I'd be like, do your job. Like stop playing around on social media. Have you had any pushback as far as these influencers from old gray beards like myself?
Oh, even from young graybeards, future graybeards. They're not gray yet, but they're practicing. There are a lot of people who look at it and say, well, they need to be doing their job. And we look at it and say, okay, what are the parameters of their job? I mean, it's something we have to consider that if we're going to approve them to have an extra job as an Uber Eats driver or, what all the other things that we approve soldiers to do.
That's been my point. Yeah.
You don't create content in uniform unless you have command permission. I mean, we're coming up with a social media guide to help with that. The Chief of Public Affairs has been in on that just to be like, look, this is kind of appropriate content creation. If you're out doing work or you're in a field and you don't have commander permission to film stuff, don't do it.
There's a lot of stuff that connects with young people that commanders don't feel, the Army doesn't feel is appropriate, but it reaches people. That's a fine line to dance across.
It is, and it's very tricky. I just did a recent post on this. I was actually, citing K-pop demon hunters. It's like, you don't have to get it for it to resonate with people. And one of the mistakes Sony made is they didn't get it, but they also had no mechanism to test whether or not other people got it.
That's right.
So Netflix has had some flops. They've tested some things, but that's innovation. You're going to have some stuff not worked, but they had a mechanism to test it out on an audience. And then they had plans in the background, like, oh, this thing is a phenomenon. We're going to do a theater release. We're going to do a sing along. We're going to do all these things. They had things ready to kind of build if it worked. And they had things to be able to say, look, we tried if it didn't. So, I mean, that's kind of how we have to be with any innovative idea, not just folks who are out creating content, but, the young soldiers who are out 3D printing drones out at Fort Bragg. They're doing amazing stuff. They're partnering with Duke. We have soldiers at Fort Campbell who are partnering with university and are trying to figure out better ways of manufacturing and how to shorten the supply chain. It's like, how do we give them enough room to test? And we kind of, as that command layer, become the venture capitalists to say, I'm going to buy into your idea. I'm going to let you go try it. I'm going to give you the latitude to try it, and we're going to see if it works. Because if it does, it could be great for the Army.
And once you all figure that out, if you then are able to allow these tech innovation officers that leave from the military and go back to their corporations to be able to take that, what you all have built out, that'll be the game changer, because it's not just the Army. I can tell you from experience, it is across corporate as well, where things are limited, people are fearful of change.
Fearful of change in bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Is not exclusive to the DOD or
Never.
Department of War, the Army. It's everywhere. Any place that has more than a handful of people.
And since you said Department of War, change is going to come up here. So when you change, let's say your boss has changed, will that handbook help keep this in process in place, or this opportunity in place, or is there still a chance that this goes by the wayside once the new person comes in and takes over?
We always have the opportunity for stuff to be put in a parking lot, but the biggest thing for us is, how do we capture the knowledge? Because even an innovation that doesn't work teaches you something about your organization, about the thing you tried. And what we're really trying to do is figure out how to maintain the knowledge base of the things that we've tried. There's stuff right now that we tried a few years ago, didn't work, and we're dusting off now and saying, hey, maybe now is a good time to try this.
Is there anything else new that's going to piss people off? No, anything new
Breaking
coming
news right here.
Goodness, that's always a fun place. It's like, what else have I done that has pissed people off lately? I mean, that's been my last 10 years. I mean, I do a number of different lectures on innovation and how to survive it. And one of them is basically that, you're going to be hated. You're sitting there putting your heart and soul into trying to help your organization, and people are going to hate you. And you got to figure out how to say, okay, you hate not just my idea, you hate me. I got to roll with this. I got to figure out how to select the criticism that's going to help me be better. And I got to tune the rest of this stuff out and figure out how to survive, because sometimes those people who hate you outrank you significantly.
I'm smiling and we're laughing because a lot of my experiences in consulting have consisted of some really unhappy moments from others. And it's about that survival, and it's about winning them over. And at the end of that, contract, whatever it is, whatever is being done, if I can get almost everyone to like me, I consider that a win. There's usually one or two holdouts. And I'm like, that's okay. That's a win. What's Lincoln say?
I didn't know there was a test, and I did not
some of the
study.
people some of the time, but not all of the people all of the time. I think something like that.
If there's going to be a test, you got to let me know.
I thought you were better on the Lincoln knowledge. So, Kris, what's been the coolest moment that you've experienced in the innovation or in the around the influencer program?
So I think a lot of it, especially with the influencer program, was just watching the Army Birthday Week unfold. And, I'm watching young soldiers, young officers going out and talking with our most senior leaders. I mean, my favorite moment to date, the one where I was just like, oh my God, we get it. We have a bridge, was Sergeant Major of the Army Weimer clowning around with Sergeant First Class Johnny Vargas. Because if you've watched any of Johnny's stuff, he does a routine where he mimics the voices and has conversations between all these senior enlisted leaders. And Mike Weimer did the voice.
Oh boy!
And we're just like, oh, he played along. We're getting it. We have some synergy. We have
awesome.
A senior leader showing. I mean, we know they're human. They don't always show it though, because we present ourselves so rigidly that I think it's very comfortable to know that somebody can present themselves authentically and still be professional.
It brings to mind all the command photos for people who haven't served.
Yes.
You go into an organization, the command photos are on the wall.
Don't smile.
And no one ever has smiled. It's the war face. Mm-hmm. And no personality will be shown in these photos.
And I think you're seeing that a lot across all of America in leadership. And Herb and I have talked about this. I think it's as our generation is pressing forward and becoming the new adults and becoming the ones in charge, that we are now the new senior level adults. We're the new leadership adults, right? Yeah, that's the right color to be at that level. So I think
mine's coming in platinum. I like
it.
I
love it. I think that it's so interesting how we are changing the culture a little bit about professionalism, yet personality is okay.
Yes.
And I think that that's something that will be really awesome to continue to watch in the Army.
Well, I think we were talking a little bit about this with transition too. I think we have watched so many people senior to us struggle with identity and struggle with what happens when, because any kind of change, we've been talking about change a lot, it's an emotional event. And it impacts you personally because it's your Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're changing something in how you're getting what you need. So it's going to be significant. But when it comes down to that identity, how we teach people to formulate who they are and how much of themselves they can bring to command, to work, to anything where it involves an equal ownership. It's it's an unequal ownership when it comes to the Army. The Army wants to own all of us. And I think kind of our generation is pushing back and saying that, no, I can be who you need me to be, but also be me.
I love that. And I think that was a big part of your journey, was discovering who you were outside of the Army.
Probably explains why I look like the way I do with long hair and a beard.
I think you had that before you left the Army.
I've always said that the Army gave me identity, it gave me a purpose, and it gave me a team. Mm-hmm. when I got out, I had to figure that out. And what were those 3 things? So how are you, as you can see the light at the end of the tunnel about a year, less than a year out from retirement?
Everyone that's approaching transition should go and look at your LinkedIn, because you have done a phenomenal job of really capturing how to transition. You're not using the language of the Army. You're using the language of, civilian.
A normal human.
No, of civilian organizations, so that when you're trying to work for these civilian organizations, they can really see and understand the direct relevance that your roles have had. So now, please proceed now that everyone has been sent down this rabbit trail.
I think a lot of it is really figuring out how to contribute as part of a team. I mean, one of the things I have loved in the past 10 years of being a leader, because I've been able to lead some very, very talented teams. And Herb, I think this will resonate with you just because of how our soft teams work, is I've led a team of experts. My job has only been to figure out which direction we're going and then to start rowing and figuring out how to fit in what I do with the rest of this super talented team. So it's a little bit of giving credit where credit is due. I am not I'm responsible for the performance of the organization, but that's not the limit of it. I can actually see my slice that I need to contribute to this team. And I've tried to figure out ways to articulate that, especially when I'm hiring new members of the team. So it's like, here's the breadth of experience and kind of the roles and the gap that your predecessor filled. I need you to fill this and maybe something else. I'm trying to articulate that to figure out who's going to come into my job. This is the stuff I do to contribute to this team. I'm not just in command of it, sitting there saying, you will do this, but I am a contributing member and this is how. That exercise and kind of figuring out my individual value proposition has been invaluable. And I'm not saying this is unique to my team. Everybody has a role and a contribution that they make to their organization, but figuring out what that is and what your wedge is and how to articulate it becomes vital.
It's huge. I've interviewed so many people that were only able to communicate themselves as a we,
Yes.
because that's what's been trained to you when you're in the military.
Into us. We,
Yes.
us.
We, us. But when you're interviewing, that does not interview well.
No, because they ask you,
have
what
to
did you actually do?
Yeah, what is your individual value proposition? You nailed it.
And this where being not special and humble fails a lot of people, because you actually do have to, hey, I did this, and you're doing it very well of doing it, and not in a braggadocious way, like just facts. This is what I'm doing and approaching it very well. So what are you most excited about as you approach retirement from the Army?
Other than, experimenting with coloring my hair different colors. I mean, because I can't grow a beard, so I have to do something.
Rebel.
Well, I don't know what I was expecting, but it was not that. So thank you.
What's the first color? I got to know.
I want to do something blue, some
not
blue
green?
streaks.
No green?
No, we're not going to stay away from green for a little
Now
bit.
I understand why you're doing innovation in the Army. You'll fit right in the tech world. Blue hair, go get it. Is there anything you're fearful of?
I'm fearful of choosing my way into an organization that I haven't, we talked a little bit earlier about interviewing your organization. I mean, I don't want to put myself in a role expecting something and then finding out it's something totally different. I really want to do my homework. I'm excited about roles that'll give me the autonomy to really kind of stretch in the directions I want to stretch in. I want to keep speaking. I want to keep writing. I want to keep leading strategy workshops. I want to keep innovating. And for the organizations that like that, it's great. For the organizations that I kind of balk at, they're the ones where I kind of look and say, who is innovating? And if it's only the leadership that tells us how we're going to be innovative, that's not really innovation, because innovation to me it's bottom up. It's at point of pain, and it's somebody coming up saying, hey, I have this thing in my life that sucks, but I have an idea. And, coming in as a senior, again, I really want to be that venture capitalist to say, I like your idea. Let's resource it.
And I think we talked a little bit about designing your life.
Yes.
I always recommend this book to anyone who is looking to make a change in their life, whether it be leaving the military or just you feel like you need a hard reset. Mm-hmm. And there's so many times that's, viable for so many people. One of my favorite things in that book is it talks about not being afraid to fail, kind of just like innovation. Try something, see how it goes. So how have you been, working through those exercises to identify, maybe the types of places you might want to work?
A lot of it is just kind of figuring out the range of experimentation. Like how bold are they willing to get, and is there actual tolerance for failure? Because everybody will say, "Oh no, I'm able to take risks," and So one of the things we did, one of the earliest iterations of the command assessment program, this is back when we were still prototyping it, we asked a question in the beginning: "Hey, who's comfortable leading in ambiguity?" Oh. All the hands went up. Everybody's comfortable leading in ambiguity. At the end of it, we're doing the AAR, getting feedback. And, you guys said this was going to take this long, and it actually took this long, and this was this. And, this question really didn't make sense according to. And my boss and I, Gerald McGee at the time, we're kind of sitting there going, comfortable with ambiguity, huh?
You all got an X.
Yes. Not actually comfortable with it. So I really kind of want to know what organizations are comfortable with that level of ambiguity. Are you going to let me try something that doesn't work? And trust me when I say that, yeah, it didn't work, but here's what we learned. I mean, it's like all innovators like to fall back on Thomas Edison. I didn't fail to create the light bulb. I found 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Right.
Which, sounds trite, but at the same time, you're bracketing in that artillery strike.
Yeah.
You're figuring out the places the enemy's not. I mean, it's Battleship. Here it is.
Yeah, everyone wants to innovate until it comes time to innovate, and they have to change or assume risk. And then everyone's like, no. Or they, like you said earlier, leaders want to innovate, and this is how you innovate.
Or you want to transform, organizational transformation, but don't actually change stuff that much. Change this one thing.
That's right. And that's something that Herb and I have seen quite a bit, where people ask you to transform their organization, but hold on to everything exactly as it's been done. And they don't want that change. And when you really uncover why, and you ask why it's so important to them, it's really personal.
Yes.
It's not usually because of the functionality or the success. It's usually a deep-rooted fear of losing that personal comfort.
We always ask this last of our guests, what do you value most in life?
I never want to be in a stage in my life where I'm not curious, where I'm not open to thinking through another way of doing things or exploring why somebody thinks a thing a certain way. Because if we become uncurious, then we cease to learn, and ceasing to learn in this environment is existential.
That is so eloquently put.
Everyone should be scrambling to hire you.
Yeah, I will
Scrambling
say,
to hire you.
if you're a large organization, well, this is it. A lot of people don't. The smart ones out there are looking ahead and planning, and they're like, hey, next year, about this time, we're looking to bring someone special in. It would be Kris Saling. I mean, this is the talent that you have and the insights. I'm just grateful for you to sit down with us, and thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to. I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you. And we really appreciate you being willing to share all of this. I just think you're incredible. You're inspirational. I always say that had I known
You said we weren't going to cry on this episode.
I know.
What are you doing?
I know. It's going there. We're going to go. I do have tissues in the other room if we need them. But in all seriousness, growing up, I did not have people around me that were in the military other than men, and I had no idea the capacity of which you could serve. And had I had the opportunity to meet someone like you when I was younger, I absolutely would have served.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for the chance to talk to you guys. We have so many different people from so many different walks of life who serve and who find creative ways to serve, ways that you never imagined. So, I mean, the world now is connected by social media. You see somebody online talking about your service, ask them a question, because I'm pretty sure that they'll take the time to answer it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. ...
Subscribe, like, and comment, and don't forget to set those notifications. We'll see you next week with another special guest.
Until then, own your journey.